11:23 p.m., Friday night, 22 nights ago. The doorbell rang on my 25th wedding anniversary. The usual ding 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 was fine during the day, but it was incredibly annoying when it woke me up late at night. I had dozed off while watching a movie that turned out to be terrible. My wife was out taking an Uber, and I had some free time. There were no kids at home anymore to worry about. I used to spend time waiting for her to come home after a girls' night out. Waiting for her had become a routine of mine. I wanted her to feel uneasy sneaking in after the party, because things weren't right in our home. After a lifetime together, we were 3 weeks away from our 25th wedding anniversary. We should have been looking forward to it, planning a big family celebration. But it didn't happen. My wife was cheating. I had no intention of staying in her life when that anniversary came. She didn't know what I knew. We had married young, had kids quickly, and now, with no kids at home, I didn't have to worry about anything if we split up. The thing was, I wasn't going to divorce her. I was planning something much worse. 9 months ago, I discovered she had been cheating with her longtime boss. What hurt more was that her boss was my brother, Jake, my older, charming brother, the family's favorite. He was 2 years older than me, and the life of every party. I had lived in his shadow my whole life. I learned of their betrayal when she accidentally left her phone open while preparing for a bachelorette party. I picked it up to give it to her, but in the process, I accidentally pressed a button. A WhatsApp notification popped up on the screen. I couldn't believe my eyes. Why was she getting messages from my brother? They had been together at work all day. The message read, "Are you ready?" So, I opened the conversation between her and Jake, and what I saw made my blood boil. The messages revealed how they had been seeing each other for months. What made me angriest wasn't just the betrayal. It was how they talked about me. They mocked me. They talked about how Jake could give her what I couldn't. My wife joined in with her brother, degrading me as a man, a lover, and a husband. If she had noticed how my feelings for her had cooled over the past few months, she worked hard to hide it. She would sometimes ask if I was okay when we had quiet evenings, not talking, not touching, without any affection. I always brushed it off, hoping it would make her think about our future. But apparently, it didn't bother her. Our sex life had been practically non-existent, but she didn't seem to care. Maybe she didn't notice because she was meeting her needs elsewhere, 3 to 4 times a week between work and the bachelorette parties every Friday. I would have preferred a divorce, even though it would have been painful, as I loved her completely. But instead, she treated me like a fool. The only exception to our declining intimacy occurred when my brother and his family went to Florida for 2 weeks. During that time, she became more affectionate, pressing her body against me late at night and early in the morning. I slept with her twice in those 2 weeks, but it was filled with hatred. I wanted to resist her even more, but I needed a release. And I didn't want her to realize that I knew she was cheating. Why didn't I just confront them? The truth is, I was working on a plan to kill them both. Yes, you probably think I'm a fool, but I had it all figured out. I wasn't a beginner when it came to revenge. I hoped to avoid a life sentence, but if that's what happened, I'd rather live with that than carry the weight of their betrayal. Over the months, I thought about dozens of plans to end their lives. I wished for their deaths, but there was a problem. They were usually only together at work or for family events. I had to find a way to kill them without it being obvious. I thought about hiring someone to carry out a drive-by shooting, but that would put innocent lives at risk, including my own. I even wondered if carbon monoxide poisoning could work. But their usual meeting place was a modern, solar-powered hotel, making it unlikely. I thought through many different scenarios, but each had its own set of problems. It was getting harder to stay normal around them, especially when we had family gatherings. They thought their affair was a secret, but I could see the way they looked at each other, the casual touches when they thought no one was looking. It made me sick to my stomach. I realized how much they enjoyed their secret relationship, and not just the sex but the intimacy that should have been reserved for me. They didn't just disrespect me, they hated me.
Why?
I had no idea. I had always been supportive of my brother, and had never given my wife a reason to disrespect me. I had treated her well, in and out of bed. She had never had sex with me without at least one orgasm, sometimes more. And yet, I was at my breaking point. I came up with my latest plan. even though it was foolish. I decided that I would expose their affair, then shoot them both, hoping that I could plead temporary insanity in my torment. I knew it would probably mean a long prison sentence, but at least I would be able to live with some sort of justice. Ideally, I wanted to force them to live in fear for a while, knowing that divorce and family breakdown were coming. I was set on killing them both just before our 25th anniversary. There was no going back. I wasn't going to celebrate that day with my wife. Coincidentally, the anniversary fell on a Saturday, so my plan was to follow her to the hotel after her usual Friday night bachelorette party, find the room they were in, and confront them both. Then, just as I was finalizing everything, the doorbell rang. I thought my wife must have forgotten her keys. "Coming!" I yelled, but when I opened the door, it wasn't her, it was two police officers. The older one, Officer O'Reilly, introduced himself and his partner, Officer Bowski. They asked if they could come in. I invited them in, and they both looked very serious. "Sir, are you Mr. Richards, Irene Richards' husband?" Officer O'Reilly asked. I nodded. He continued, "Mr. Richards, I'm sorry to inform you that your wife was involved in a fatal car accident this evening. Your brother, Jacob, was driving the car, and he too was killed." At that moment, I started laughing uncontrollably, unable to believe my luck. Not only had I been saved from prison, but we had insurance that would pay off the mortgage if the first spouse died. It was almost paid off anyway, so it wasn't a big burden, but there was also another policy for $500,000 for each of us. Not only would I stay out of jail, but now I would have a huge financial advantage. The officers looked at me with concern and asked if they could call someone to be with me during this tragic time. I smiled and said, "No, thank you, officers. Life just did me a huge favor." These two had been having an affair for 9 months. I spent almost all my time trying to figure out how to end it, and now it's ended. It's just natural justice. I told them I was fine, and that I was going to have a drink to celebrate. "Would you like to join me?" I asked. They declined, saying they were on duty. They also seemed disgusted by my reaction to my wife's and brother's deaths, and they left, telling me to call the morgue the next morning to identify the bodies. I thought it was wise not to tell them about my plan to kill them both in less than 3 weeks. There was no need to complicate things. I showed them my true feelings and knew I would play the role of the grieving husband for a while, until I could collect the insurance money to pay off the mortgage and rebuild my finances. That night, I slept like a baby. The next morning, I went to the morgue to see if they had miraculously revived. When I arrived and examined their bodies, my sister-in-law asked me to identify Jake and Irene. The orderly muttered, "What a mess." From the looks of it, the crash had happened fast. The driver of the 18-wheeler had worked too many hours that day, fallen asleep at the wheel, and ran a red light. The truck hit their car, splitting it in two and killing both of them instantly. It was a tragic end, but in a way, I was relieved. There were no resurrections overnight. Both remained dead. I felt no need to confront them now. The situation had worked out perfectly. I didn't need to destroy my future with repercussions. It felt like karma. Life went on, but not for them. I was able to smile again after 9 months of heartache. If you found this story captivating, make sure to like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories. Your support helps bring more content like this to life. And always remember, no matter how well hidden, some secrets will eventually come to light. The truth has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it. Microphone fire.